Space Marines Part 5. Heavy Support. Devastator Squad. Devastators are the most heavily armed of all Space Marine squads, trained to assail the enemy from a great distance and with overwhelming firepower. As primarily long-range support troops, Devastators are capable of providing the chapter's tactical and assault squads with covering fire or engaging enemy vehicles and other heavily armored targets. Unlike most other Space Marine squads, Devastators operate from a largely static footing, abandoning fixed positions only to advance, fall back or occupy a position with more commanding arcs of fire. This is not to say that Devastators cannot be flexible upon the field of battle. Indeed, each squad has its own assigned Rhino transport for such redeployments. However, it remains true that Devastator squads most completely define a Space Marine task force's reach and depth, for they promise destruction with greater range and measure than any of the Battle Brothers. Most Devastator squads are composed of Space Marines who have recently completed the tours of service in the chapter's scout squads. Though they will have taken part in dozens, or perhaps even hundreds, of deployments as neophyte Space Marines, service in a Devastator squad will not only be the first experience of fighting in power armor but also mark the first engagements as part of the main Astartes task force. When first promoted into a Devastator squad, a Space Marine is issued with the bolter and grenades with which he will grow ever more skilled throughout his service. His primary functions are to provide close fire support, call out targets and generally act as a backup for the more experienced Battle Brothers who carry the squad's heavy weapons. Only when the neophyte has proved himself a steady and dependable warrior is he entrusted a heavy weapon from the chapter's armory. Devastator squads commonly carry 4 heavy weapons into battle. These can range from the heavy bolter and missile launcher to the more exotic multi-melter and plasma cannon. A single Devastator squad is able to excel at several battlefield roles by the simple expedient of splitting into an anti-tank and an anti-infantry combat squad. Even so, a few Space Marines chapters have refined the role of the Devastator squads to suit a recurrent foe or engagement type. For example, the Crimson Fists, the tactics understandably skewed by near annihilation at the hands of the Orkwag Snagrod, tend to favor the hail of anti-personnel fire profit by 4 heavy bolters. The Salamanders and Imperial Fists, however, deploy their Devastators with multi-melters and las cannon to crack the formidable armor of enemy tanks and fortifications. Centurion Devastator Squad. A Centurion is a Space Marine who has been equipped with a powered exoskeleton worn over his normal suit of power armor known as a Centurion warsuit that allows him to serve a heavy-ranged or close combat assault role between that of a normal Astartes and a Terminator. A Centurion warsuit enables a Space Marine to stride into battle with the firepower of a battle tank at his fingertips. Protected by thick ablative plates of ceramite, a Centurion warsuit renders its pilot immune to all but the most powerful of weapons. Named after the Space Marine Legion leaders of old, the Centurion warsuit design was unearthed in the aftermath of the Age of Apostasy in the 36th millennium, and after sanction by the Adeptus Mechanicus, the suits found their way into the armories of almost every Space Marine chapter. Centurion Devastator squads are long-range specialists who pound enemy positions with salvos of heavy weapons fire. A Centurion Devastator squad's only real weakness is its lack of speed, for whilst they can outgun entire squads of enemy infantry, they are easily outpaced by the fast-moving elements of a foe's strike force. Thus, they are primarily employed to besiege defended enemy positions or to defend their own fortifications, or used as mobile fire bases to strengthen advancing battle lines. Centurion Devastator squads are led by a Centurion Sergeant. Predator. The Predator is a heavily armored Rhino variant that is used as the main battle tank by most Space Marine chapters. With the added weapons it offers, there is no space remaining for troop transport. The Predator sacrifices transport capacity for improved frontal armor and heavy turret-mounted armament. The result is a well-armed and mobile tank, equally capable of holding ground or spearheading armored assaults into the most heavily defended of enemy territory. Armed with either an autocannon or twin-linked las cannons on its main turret, it can also have heavy bolters or las cannons mounted on sponsons to either side as well. The Blood Angels chapter has been known to field a BAL variant of the Predator. The BAL Predator is equipped with a twin-linked assault cannon on its main turret and a single heavy flamer or heavy bolter mounted to either side on sponsons as well. The efficiency and durability of the Predator design are attested to by its long and proud history. Indeed, the records of the Adeptus Mechanicus indicate that the Predator was instrumental in establishing mankind's dominance in the galaxy during the Dark Age of technology. Here, its formidable firepower and reinforced armor were decisive in curbing the menace posed by all manner of alien races, the savage orcs and mysterious Eldar foremost amongst them. It is small wonder that the Predator has become a byword for armored might, and its unique appearance became as much a symbol of the Imperium of Man as the Aquila upon its adamantium hull. The Predator is a highly versatile vehicle, capable of receiving a number of weapon loadouts. There are two classes of Predator currently in use by the majority of Space Marine chapters. The Destructor pattern is equipped with a turret-mounted autocannon, perfect for the suppression of light vehicles or troop formations, whilst the twin-linked las cannon of the Annihilator pattern is deadly to enemy armor. The firepower of both Predator types can be further augmented by sponson-mounted weapons as noted above. Most chapters employ a variety of Predator patterns, although some heavily favor one model. Though a Space Marine chapter will occasionally field its full fleet of 20 or so Predators as an armored task force, the Predator's chief function is to provide fire support for the chapter's infantry. In reinforcement of this designation, each freshly forged Predator is assigned a name that reflects its role as a protector of the chapter's brethren. Indeed, a Predator's name may endure in the collective memory of a chapter of Astartes long after its various crews are forgotten by all of its chapter's histories. Heart of Defiance, Aura's Sentinel and Blade of Honor all hold revered positions in the battle sagas of the Ultramarines, and the destruction is mourned as greatly as the passing of any of the chapter's greatest heroes. Whirlwind. Intended to be used as an elite, highly mobile force, the Space Marines normally have little need for heavy artillery pieces. However, the Codex Astartes does recognize the need for devastating support fire, particularly when engaging numerous hordes or highly mobile foes. It is vital that such enemies are broken or suppressed from a distance before they can take advantage of the Space Marines' lack of numbers. However, when the use of heavy firepower is called for, the Astartes can utilize the Whirlwind, another variant of the Rhino chassis armed with a long-range missile pod that can bombard enemy positions in preparation for an Astartes offensive. Whirlwinds use two types of ammunition in the form of frag and crack missiles, the use of which is determined by the nature of the threat they will engage. As with the Predator, there is no room left inside these vehicles for troop transportation after they are outfitted with the new weapon configuration. It is for this specialized mission that the Whirlwind was designed. Thanks to its target acquisition system, the Whirlwind is able to bombard hidden or entrenched targets with incredible accuracy, often from behind the safety of cover. The Whirlwind's normal payload consists of solid-fuel frag missiles, launched in programmed salvos of paired rockets. The Whirlwind's sophisticated telemetry ensures that each barrage is delivered for maximum effect, resulting in a more formidable blast than that provided by conventional frag missiles. The Whirlwind is also able to fire Castellan incendiary missiles. Here the fragmentation charge is exchanged for a volatile promethium-laced chemical warhead that throws out a blanket of searing flame on detonation. Even the most entrenched bulwarks offer no protection against a sustained barrage of Castellan missiles. If the defenders are not roasted alive by chemical fires, the acrid and acidic vapors swiftly eat them alive from the inside out. The combination of maneuverability and overwhelming firepower offered by an experienced whirlwind crew is an asset much prized by all Space Marine commanders. Some chapters enhance the whirlwind's devastating psychological impact upon foes still further by altering the whirlwind's payload so that the missile emits a terrible screeching wail as it hurtles through the sky. Sometimes the sound alone is sufficient to drive the foe from their fortifications, allowing the Space Marines to advance unopposed. Vindicator. When attacking heavily fortified enemy positions, Space Marine chapters use the Vindicator, another Rhino variant, which fills nearly the entire Rhino chassis with the massive, snub-nosed demolisher cannon that is capable of blasting through the thickest of walls. This weapon has proven so effective that the Iron Warriors Traitor Legion makes it a point to scavenge these Imperial machines for their own use whenever possible. The notion of fitting a high-caliber cannon into the hull of a Rhino first evolved during the very early years of the Horus Heresy, during the fierce inner-city battles on Rhodanai. Traitor formations had transformed the labyrinth of alleyways and rock-cut structures into formidable defensive positions, and the Loyalist forces had to devise a way of delivering bunker-busting ordnance with precision amongst the cramped streets. Large-bore Thunderer cannons were mounted onto remodeled and up-armored Rhino chassis. Thus was born the Vindicator, undisputed victor of the Rhodanai campaign, and evermore an essential part of any Space Marine chapter's armory. In the millennia since the heresy, the Vindicator has been called upon again and again to bring the Emperor's judgment to the foes of mankind. Amid the snarl of a hive-world streets or similar environments, the Vindicator is unparalleled. Where other vehicles would quickly be outflanked, the Vindicator can simply obliterate obstacles that lie in its path and surge forwards over the broken rubble. However, there has been a steady stream of upgrades and technological tweaks to the vehicle pattern carried out by inventive tech Marines as time has passed. The most significant of these alterations has been the replacement of the bulky Thunderer cannon with the much more compact but no less potent Demolisher cannon. A legion of other alterations has been applied to armor plating, fire control and drive mechanisms. For larger engagements, a squadron of Vindicators flanks the advance, unleashing their punishing firepower in support of the breaching land raiders. On smaller scales, a Vindicator may itself be the spearhead of the formation, punching a hole in the enemy fortification and allowing Space Marine and Allied infantry to stream through in its wake. Hunter. The Hunter, also known as the Whirlwind Hunter, is a variant of the standard Space Marine Whirlwind artillery tank and serves as the Space Marine's primary surface-to-air combat unit. Armed with a potent Skyspear missile launcher, the Hunter has proven its worth in countless war zones, scouring the skies of enemy bombers and fighter craft. The Hunter is the primary surface-to-air combat vehicle of the Adeptus Astartes and is the first known dedicated anti-aircraft platform fielded by the Astartes. Prior to the discovery of the standard template construct data for the Hunter, many Space Marine chapters had attempted to retrofit the Whirlwind in various ways, with mostly negative results. The vehicle is based on SDC data which is much older than the much more recent Whirlwind Hyperios anti-air tank. Though the Whirlwind Hyperios is a stable pattern of anti-air combat vehicle and is becoming widely adopted by many chapters, there are still many chapters that have continued to use the Hunter on the battlefield, including during the recent Third War for Armageddon, where the Hunter was used in great numbers by Astartes chapters like the Black Templars who participated in that conflict. The Hunter also features improved front and side armor over the standard Whirlwind, and is outfitted with hydraulic stabilizers that anchor the vehicle to the ground so that when it fires its anti-aircraft artillery it suffers no recoil. Stalker. The Stalker, also known as the Whirlwind Stalker, is a specialized, mobile anti-air platform and variant of the Whirlwind Hunter, itself a variant of the Whirlwind artillery tank. The Stalker is an adaptation of the Hunter standard template construct that was unearthed by the Adeptus Mechanicus only a few millennia ago. Mounting a pair of independently tracking Icarus storm cannons, the Stalker can target multiple enemy contacts, stitching the skies with a hail of armor-piercing death. The Stalker is a relatively new addition to the armories of the Adeptus Astartes, having only been put into production relatively recently since its SDC data was rediscovered only several millennia ago. The Stalker is a vital part of a Space Marine chapter's armory, and it is deployed as a rapid-firing anti-aircraft platform that is able to track and engage multiple enemy targets simultaneously. The Stalker's front and flank armor is thicker than most other Rhino chassis-based vehicles, allowing the Stalker to deflect or absorb more incoming enemy fire. The Stalker's sides also feature hydraulic stabilizers that anchor the vehicle to the ground so that when it fires its anti-aircraft artillery it suffers no recoil and loss of accuracy. Land Raider. The Land Raider is one of the most powerful main battle tanks at the Imperium's disposal, and also one of the rarest in use by Imperial forces since only a few Imperial Forge worlds still possess the secrets of its manufacture. A Space Marine chapter is lucky if it has more than 5 at its disposal. The Land Raider can transport troops into battle, carries enough weapons to blast its way through nearly any defense, and has armor plating thick enough to withstand massive amounts of firepower. The normal Land Raider pattern is called the Phobos. It carries a hull-mounted, twin-linked heavy bolter able to turn light infantry into sludge. It also carries 2 twin-linked Godhammer pattern las cannons in its 2 side sponsons, making the Land Raider an extremely formidable foe for armored vehicles, able to stand up for itself in any fight against another vehicle, and come out victorious almost all of the time. Land Raiders are also equipped with a machine spirit, a form of limited artificial intelligence. The machine spirit is smart enough to move the tank and fight even without a crew. It enables the tank to move even when the crew has been stunned and is able to operate one weapon of the player's choice to shoot at a target. However, the artificial intelligence of the machine spirit is nothing compared to the battle-hardened Space Marine crew of the Land Raider, and as a result, accuracy suffers considerably. With transport capacity for a full squad of Space Marines, their field supplies, communications gear, munitions and medical facilities, the Land Raider is well suited for striking deep behind enemy lines and surviving for long periods in the field. This flexibility is further reinforced by a sealed hull and the complex environmental systems that allow it to operate in practically any theater of battle. Indeed, the Land Raider is as fearsome in the airless atmospheres of dead moons as it is in the fume-choked environs of a hive world. The Land Raider can also function without ill effect under the extreme pressures of submarine environments, using its powerful tracks to traverse sea and river beds and assail the foes from an unexpected angle. A Land Raider is a blessed artifact to the tech marines that oversee its repair and maintenance. This is not least because a Land Raider's machine spirit is so much stronger than that of lesser tanks, a fact taken to mean that a substantial portion of the machine god's essence resides within the Land Raider's impenetrable adamantium hull. Accordingly, should even a Land Raider's sponson be lost in battle, the rest of the chapter will fight like men possessed for its retrieval, often calling in further reinforcements to ensure that the component is not lost. So it is that lives of men can be stilled in order to preserve the spirit of a machine, but the Space Marines honor such a sacrifice and go willingly into a battle of this kind. Land Raiders were once used by all the branches of the Imperium's armed forces at the time of the Great Crusade. During the Horus Heresy, the Emperor of Mankind ordered that the use be restricted to the Space Marines, as they were the Imperial forces at the forefront of that terrible civil war. The popularity of this mighty war engine was so great that an entire Forge world, Anvilus 9, was entirely converted solely to Land Raider production. But, at the beginning of the Horus Heresy, Anvilus 9 was overrun by chaos-corrupted tech priests from the Dark Mechanicum. Other Forge worlds of the Imperium also ceased to function, either suffering the same fate as Anvilus 9 after being captured by the forces of Chaos, or chose to become neutral in the struggle to see which side emerged triumphant, leaving only a small number of loyalist Forge worlds still producing goods for the glory of the Emperor. As a result, Land Raider production suddenly slowed to a trickle. With Horus forces threatening to overrun Terra, the heart of the Imperium, the Emperor decreed that all Land Raiders still on the Loyalist side were to be for the exclusive use of the Space Marines, who were always at the forefront of the Imperium's cause. Once the Horus Heresy had been crushed following the sacrifice of the Emperor, the decree of exclusive use of the Land Raiders by the Adeptus Astartes remained in place, as none dared to revoke the Master of Mankind's most holy commandments. Thus, the decree has remained in place for the last 10,000 years. Land Raider Crusader. The Land Raider Crusader is nearly identical to the standard Land Raider pattern but is armed to provide short-ranged, anti-infantry support. A line breaker without peer, the Crusader can smash through enemy formations and fortifications alike, disgorging Space Marine assault troops into the heart of the enemy position. Numerous short-ranged and swift-firing weapons allow the Crusader to weaken the enemy before the assault is launched, and provide a torrent of fire to support its cargo once in combat. Most crews use their vehicles as adamantium battering rams, relying on the Land Raiders' mass to crash through walls, shoulder aside tanks and pulverize enemy troops. The Land Raider Crusader is armed with the hull-mounted twin-linked assault cannon turret, and sponson-mounted Hurricane bolters, essentially 6 standard bolters fire-linked together. It is also equipped with a multi-melter to burn through armored walls, and its front is studded with frag grenade launchers to assist the troops disembarking from its front ramp. The removal of the las cannons and the plasma generators allows for greater troop capacity. The Crusader may transport 8 Space Marines in Terminate armor, or 15 Astartes in standard Mark 7 power armor. The Crusader variant of the Land Raider was developed by the Black Templars chapter during the Gerald's Crusade. The fortifications upon which the Gerulian hive cities were founded, though ancient, were nonetheless a formidable obstacle to the Black Templars' wrath. Before such a weapon even the fortresses of Gerald's could not stand, and soon the Black Templars were victorious and the Land Raider Crusader hailed an unmistakable success. As news of the Crusaders' success spread, other Space Marine chapters requested information regarding their remodeling of the Land Raider. In the 763rd year of the 39th millennium, due in no small part to the favorable stance taken by the Ultramarines, the Crusader pattern was sanctioned by the Adeptus Mechanicus. In truth, many chapters had been utilizing the Crusader for some years already, but the blessing of Mars ensured the design's survival. With the support of the Forge worlds, the Crusader began appearing ever more frequently on the battle zones of the Imperium and has since become the mainstay of many a chapter's combat strategy. Land Raider Redeemer. The Land Raider Redeemer is an evolution of the Land Raider Crusader variant, created by the Fire Lords chapter. As the Crusader was a modification of the original Land Raider, so is the Redeemer an evolution of the Crusader pattern. The Redeemer retains the assault cannon and frag grenade launchers of the Crusader but eschews the Hurricane bolter sponsons for colossal flame projectors that send a billowing tide of burning promethium into the thick of the foe. Combined with the Redeemer's sophisticated targeting systems, these so-called flamestorm cannons are able to purge even a well-defended bunker complex in seconds. An assault fought amongst the rubble-strewn and treacherous environs of a ruined city is the most grueling kind of battle. Combatants lurk in the maze of ruined buildings, taking shelter amongst tumbled rockcrete and using 1,000 vantage points to snipe at the enemy. For the Space Marines, whose whole combat doctrine revolves around the concept of a swift war won before the defender realizes that he is fighting, such a situation is intolerable. The foe must be driven from his stronghold, and swiftly. In such battles, only fire will purge the enemy from his nest. Captain Jarek Foros of the Fire Lords, tasked with restoring the Emperor's law to the Civil War-plagued world of Grisson, Foros directed his tech marines to construct a weapon that would win the war. Within a week of the first Land Raider modifications, the Fire Lords took Grisson's capital city. Within a month, the largest planetary faction was suing for peace, and Grisson was part of the Imperium once more. In the wake of the Grisson campaign, Foros disseminated his new design schematics. Having always been possessed of a sardonic frame of mind, he named the new pattern Prometheus after an ancient god from a Terran legend who brought fire to men. He changed the official designation to Redeemer only upon learning that the name was already taken by a Land Raider variant developed by the Salamanders. Nonetheless, the original Redeemer still serves in the Fire Lord's second company, the name Prometheus resplendent on its flanks and honored in the chapter's histories. Thunderfire Cannon. Space Marine task forces are intended to carry out swift, lightning-quick assaults, and a unit in an Astartes force that cannot maintain a rapid advance swiftly becomes a major liability. For this reason, most Space Marine fire support artillery units are mounted on armored vehicle chassis that can keep pace with the rest of the army, as can be seen in the cases of the Vindicator and the Whirlwind. Designed for the static defense of a fortified Space Marine position, the Thunderfire Cannon is the one exception to the Space Marines' emphasis on mobility. Mounted on slow-moving but rugged tracks, each Thunderfire Cannon is a quad-barreled minigun capable of maintaining a withering hail of fire. The tech marine manning a Thunderfire Cannon can set its shells to detonate in a variety of different ways, depending on the tactical situation. Surface detonations are employed against numerous enemies in comparatively clear terrain, whilst airburst shells are used to scour a foe from cover. The most devastating barrage, however, is one programmed to burrow deep into the ground before detonating. Though the force of the blast is greatly reduced, the resulting shock wave is often sufficient to knock enemies sprawling, making them easy prey for other Astartes weaponry. Thunderfire cannons are primarily employed in mountainous or broken planetary terrain, where the more traditional Space Marine mobile artillery units, such as Whirlwinds, cannot operate. Though a Thunderfire cannon is capable of moving on its own, they are normally deployed from Thunderhawk gunships or other fast-moving transport craft from a Space Marine forces orbiting strike cruiser or battle barge. Thunderfire cannons are also invaluable in defensive deployments and evacuation missions, where their high rate of anti-personnel fire and disruptive subterranean shockwaves can wreak glorious wrath amongst the attacking forces. Storm Raven gunship. The Storm Raven gunship is a highly versatile multi-role aircraft found in the armory of the Adeptus Astartes. The Storm Raven can act simultaneously as an armored transport, orbital dropship, and strike aircraft. This aircraft is smaller than the larger and more common Thunderhawk gunship that has been used by the Adeptus Astartes since the Great Crusade, and thanks to its array of vectored thrusters, the Storm Raven is also much more agile while in flight. The Storm Raven's impressive speed and maneuverability, when used in conjunction with the superhumanly precise skills and reaction times of its Space Marine crew, allows the aircraft to effortlessly evade enemy interceptor fire and maneuver at full thrust through the cluttered spires of a house city or through the megafauna of a jungle-covered death world. The Storm Raven is capable of carrying up to 12 power armored Space Marines in its armored troop hold and is even capable of carrying up to 6 assault Marines, although their jump packs take up half of the interior room. The aircraft can also transport an Astartes dreadnought by way of external grapples. Many times if a Storm Raven is destroyed while in transit, the dreadnought is capable of surviving and later being recovered by the chapter's tech marines. It is currently unknown if the Storm Raven is capable of transporting Terminators. The Storm Raven gunship is a relatively recent introduction to the armories of the Adeptus Astartes. Indeed, as befits a bureaucracy as labyrinthine and cliquish as that of the Imperium of Man, there are no official records to explain the vehicle's emergence. Certainly, the Storm Raven began service and proved its worth within the Grey Knights and Blood Angels chapters, and some records suggest that it was not meant to see broader use until the Adeptus Mechanicus was fully satisfied with its performance. However, in such dire times as the late 41st millennium, when the fate of humanity itself rests on a knife's edge, the Adeptus Astartes need every weapon they can find, sanctioned or not. Many Space Marine chapters now field a handful of the aircraft alongside their more traditional strike vehicles. The role of a Space Marine Strike Force's Storm Raven gunships varies greatly from the battle zone to battle zone and, to an extent, in response to the personality of the Strike Force's commander. Whilst most Space Marine chapters utilize the Storm Ravens in concert with their other transport vehicles, there are a handful who have come to use them as the primary means of deploying battle brothers to an objective, combining, as they do, the swift orbital descent of the drop pod with the battlefield versatility of a Rhino or Razorback. 12 power armored Space Marines can be accommodated within the Storm Raven's adamantium belly, ready to charge out of the gunship once the assault ramp clangs down, or to make an aerial descent via grav chutes should a landing not be possible. Furthermore, the Storm Raven can also carry a mighty dreadnought in its rear cargo grapples. It is the smallest Space Marine aircraft able to do so. Yet to use the Storm Raven as a transport alone is to overlook its formidable array of weapons. Whilst the precise loadout varies greatly from gunship to gunship, the Storm Raven's firepower is easily the equal of a chapter's most potent land-based fighting vehicles, and more than capable of wreaking untold destruction upon a deserving foe. Dedicated transport. Rhino. A fast troop transport, a Rhino APC armored personnel carrier can hold up to 10 Space Marines, a full squad, not including the 2 Astartes crew members who drive and operate it. The chassis of the Rhino is very versatile and serves as the basis for many of the other Space Marine armored vehicles. The Rhino can be outfitted with pintle-mounted weapons. Rhino armored troop carriers are the mainstay of every Space Marine chapter's vehicle pool. With an optimal balance of armor, transport capacity and maneuverability, the Rhino allows the Space Marines to swiftly redeploy rush squads into positions of strategic advantage or conduct surgical strikes on the enemy lines. As with much of the technology employed by the Imperium, the standard template construct design for the Rhino dates back to the earliest days of human interstellar colonization during the Dark Age of technology. It has changed little in the intervening millennia, for one of the Rhino design's great triumphs is its ease of assembly and simple adaptation to alternate construction methods and fuel systems. In the past, much of the Imperium's war machine relied on the Rhino, but now the knowledge of its construction and maintenance has largely faded as mankind has continued to stagnate and even move backwards technologically in many ways. Only the Space Marines and a handful of other Imperial organizations can boast Rhinos in numbers sufficient to meet the needs. The core triumph of the Rhino's design is its durability and ease of repair. Indeed, most Rhinos contain rudimentary self-repair systems that can restore their drive systems even after damage so severe that many similar vehicles would be permanently inoperable. However, such damage is rare, for the Rhino's design is incredibly rugged. Given time and the necessary facilities, a skilled tech marine can nurse even a badly battered wreck to life, reconsecrating it in the eyes of the machine god and restoring it to the chapter service. As a result, many Rhinos have remained in service for thousands of standard years. Over that time, almost every component and armor plate will have been replaced or been subject to significant repair, but the honored name and designation of the Rhino lives on. Razorback. A Razorback is a variant of the Rhino chassis that sacrifices some troop carrying capacity for additional firepower. Razorbacks are commonly mounted with twin-linked heavy bolters or twin-linked las cannons on a single turret on the chassis and are excellent for providing fire support to smaller squads. They can, however, also utilize assault cannons or multi-melters. With the addition of the turret, the Razorback's troop capacity is limited to 6 Space Marines. The vast armories of the Space Marines contains many types of fighting vehicles. Some have been used for thousands of years whilst others, like the Razorback, have only recently been rediscovered. Standard battle doctrine dictates that Razorbacks should be deployed as fire support vehicles, accompanying Rhinos or infantry squads into the thick of battle. As Rhinos have little in the way of firepower, even a single Razorback assigned as an escort can greatly increase the effectiveness of an assault. Impressed by its versatility, several chapters have begun to field the Razorback in other roles, employing them as mobile command centers and heavy reconnaissance screens. Despite the Razorback's proven effectiveness, some of the more conservative Space Marine chapters regard it with distrust, claiming that it is new technology and still not sufficiently proven in battle. While this has a certain inherent logic, the Razorback has been in use for a mere 4,000 years. Whilst the Rhino and Predator predate the Horus heresy, the fact that most chapters have embraced the Razorback as a keystone of their operational doctrines serves to highlight this suspicious attitude as misguided. Sometime in the future, the Razorback may replace the Rhino as the mainstay transport of the Space Marines. Thunderhawk gunship. The Thunderhawk gunship is one of the Space Marines' primary weapons in the war against the enemies of the Imperium. The Thunderhawk was first deployed during the Great Crusade after its discovery as a standard template construct designed by the Emperor of Mankind to replace the Warhawk 6 gunship, better known as the Stormbird. Armed to the teeth with a Thunderhawk cannon and various other weapons, its use became more and more widespread over the millennia. Each chapter of the Adeptus Astartes maintains its own Thunderhawks. Normally reserved for large-scale battles, time and time again its use in the various fields of war has been proven to be of inestimable value. The use of a flight of Thunderhawks to provide supporting fire and the rapid deployment of a detachment of Space Marines or Imperial Guardsmen to a critical battlefield location is a favorite of Imperial commanders. Thunderhawk variants can also be used as transports for the Space Marines' various armored vehicles, aerial ground support and anti-armor gunships, or even as fighter craft to destroy enemy air superiority fighters when necessary. With hardened ceramite armor, substantial transport capacity and a devastating weapons array, Thunderhawks are versatile craft indeed. Although initially designed to airlift Space Marines into a battle zone and then provide fire support, the Thunderhawk's role has broadened considerably over the millennia, with many chapters using them as high-atmosphere reconnaissance craft, long-range strike assets, or even space-bound heavy fighters. In the hands of an experienced commander, a single Thunderhawk gunship can double the effectiveness of a Space Marine strike force, particularly in war zones where maneuverability is key to victory. Drop pod. They are atmospheric transports used primarily by Imperial Space Marines for orbital insertion and planetary assaults where achieving tactical surprise is often an important factor. The drop pods of the Adeptus Astartes look and work similarly to a starship's life pod and can carry either 12 tactical Space Marines, a single dreadnought or a single Thunderfire cannon. They are launched from a vessel in low orbit towards the drop zone, usually in the midst of or near a battlefield. Once launched, they plummet through the atmosphere until their retro rockets fire to slow the descent. A computer machine spirit guides the pod to its destination and can receive further commands from the pod's mothership. Although the pods become immobile after having landed on a planetary surface, they can be recovered by the chapter's tech marines and reused. Land Speeder Storm. The Land Speeder Storm is an uncommon variant of the standard land speeder used by the Adeptus Astartes. The Land Speeder Storm sacrifices the heavier weaponry of the more common Land Speeder variants, such as the Land Speeder Tornado and Land Speeder Typhoon, in exchange for modest transport capacity. The Land Speeder Storm is capable of carrying a small squad of Scout Marines into battle without any loss of performance. The Land Speeder Storm is mainly used as a fast reconnaissance vehicle and is capable of deploying Scout Marines deep into enemy territory without being noticed. The Land Speeder Storm is also equipped with baffled engines, which severely reduces the noise output, and a sophisticated spy array that gives the Land Speeder Storm an advantage during hit-and-run attacks. When the vehicle's cargo of Scout Marines are in the field, the vehicle can act as a mobile firebase to provide support, or the vehicle can act as an assault craft and drop the Scouts into hotly contested areas. The Land Speeder Storm is most commonly used as a stealth insertion craft, deploying the Scouts deep behind enemy lines where they can harass supply lines and destroy important targets. Chapter Fleets. All Space Marine chapters maintain a fleet of starships and other spacecraft, which by the dictates of the Codex Astartes and the limitations placed upon the Astartes by the High Lords of Terra during the reformation of the Imperium after the Horus Heresy, is supposed to be focused on intra-system transports and planetary assault. By tradition, only the Space Marine's smaller spacecraft are purposely designed to serve as gunships that are optimized for naval warfare and fleet actions. There are some chapters that have always railed against these restrictions, especially those that spend all of the time on crusade or who possess no homeworld or fortress monastery save for the fleet. These chapters usually ignore these ancient restrictions and as a result often come into political conflict with the Imperial Navy, which fears seeing its monopoly on ship-to-ship combat eroded by the far more capable fleets of the Adeptus Astartes. Rather than making use of very tightly defined classes of starships like the Imperial Navy, most chapters define the spacecraft by a far broader classification system that is defined by utility. With some of the few exceptions like the Imperial Fist's phalanx being themselves ancient relics of the Great Crusade or unique human-built warships left over from the Dark Age of technology or captured as prizes from other species and converted to the chapter's use. The battle barge is the largest and most powerful Space Marine starship ever constructed by the Imperium of Man, and few but the most potent chapters possess more than 2 or 3 of these extraordinarily powerful warships. Battle barges are equivalent in size and firepower to Imperial Navy battleships and were designed first and foremost for survivability under the heaviest forms of enemy fire, a necessary trait when spearheading a planetary invasion. The Astartes' most common form of military operation requiring such a vessel. Battle barge designs back up this incredible durability with massive, if usually short-range firepower, aid the Astartes in their assault operations, along with a substantial number of launch bays for Thunderhawks, other attack craft and drop pods. Because of the incredible durability of their armor and void shielding, as well as their massive arsenals of the Imperium's most powerful weapons, few known starships, save for full-scale battleships, can stand up to a battle barge in close-action space combat. Thanks to the Space Marines aboard one, a battle barge is an even more terrifying opponent during a ship-to-ship boarding operation. In addition to the battle barge, the strike cruiser is the most common type of heavy warship in Space Marine chapter fleets. Strike cruisers are high-speed rapid-response cruisers intended for use in planetary assault and pacification operations. Strike cruisers are able to carry a company-sized strike force of Astartes to a combat zone and deploy them with preternatural rapidity. The last common type of starship found in Space Marine fleets are rapid strike vessels. These warships are small, warp-capable escorts that include attack craft, frigates and destroyers, which serve as both line-of-battle escorts for capital ships and system patrol vessels, as well as infiltration ships that can be used to deploy small groups of elite Astartes behind enemy lines for reconnaissance, enforce or hit-and-run raiding missions. In addition to these more common types of Space Marine warships, fleet-based chapters often make use of a number of other support vessels such as scout surveyors, Adeptus Mechanicus forward ships and the massive mobile fortress monasteries known as chapter barks. Often created from converted mass conveyors normally used by Imperial merchants for the mass hauling of cargo between star systems. Chapter barks allow a fleet-based chapter to avoid risking their precious stores of gene seed and other irreplaceable artifacts and relics on the front line of battle or crusade. Fleet-based chapters also make use of vessels called Vanguard cruisers that are refitted strike cruisers intended to undertake long-range, long-duration operations independent of support from the rest of the chapter, often serving as reconnaissance or exploratory vessels for the chapter fleet or as heavy escorts. The Vanguard cruisers are less capable of undertaking planetary assaults like normal strike cruisers because their weapons profile has been optimized for ship-to-ship combat, planetary exploration, reconnaissance and boarding operations.